Rev up your engines! Today I'm going to show you, using this 2016 Toyota Corolla, how they can be great used cars, but on the other hand, don't trust anybody when they're selling it to you. This particular one was purchased a year ago. It's a nice looking car. It was purchased at a Toyota dealer. It's the fancy S model with the swanky wheels. And it supposedly went through a Toyota dealer inspection. A while back later, she started driving around, the engine was shaking too much. It isn't shaking now because it was fixed, but the whole engine was vibrating too much. And you could see that one of the motor mounts was broken. Watches all my videos. And he knew he wasn't going to take advantage of it, the dealer. So I said, look, there's something wrong. They said there was nothing wrong, but of course, it's not supposed to shake. It's a Toyota. They don't shake. My old 94 Celica, pretty much a Toyota Corolla body, underneath, engine, transmission. It's only the style that's different. Everything, it's got the same four-cylinder engine, the same transmission as the Corolla. It's got 240,000 miles on it, and it's 27 years old, and it doesn't shake. So certainly one that's got 30,000 miles shouldn't be shaking. So after hours of haranguing with a Toyota dealer and mentioning my name, they finally got them to replace the mount there, but all the other mounts. And then it stopped shaking. But of course, that gets me thinking. There's no way on earth that a Toyota Corolla with 30,000 miles is going to have broken motor mounts on their own. My whole assumption is that this vehicle at some point in time was in a wreck. The wreck stretches stuff, and then the mounts are going to eventually break because they've been stretched too far. They're rubber in the middle, metal on the top and the bottom. They get stretched too much, then they rip. And when they do rip, then the engine starts to vibrate back and forth. So what am I looking for? Signs of it being in a wreck. Well, you always look around for overspray first, but the first thing I notice here is, check out this bolt. You look closely, you can see it's corroded on the side and the paint is faded off. Right there. See, it's different than the rest. And we go to the other side, we can see this bolt is the same way. That means that since this thing was built, those fenders have been unbolted. Maybe they've been replaced too. But that's a sign that the car had been wrecked. Now it's a Toyota Corolla. They're very dependable cars. They haven't had any other problems with it. But that's something that myself as a mechanic is going to notice if I check out a car before the customer buys it. That's why I always tell you to have a mechanic check it out and knows what he's doing before you buy. Since these are bulletproof, it shouldn't have any other problems. But of course, the customer brought it over here because he's thinking, Jesus, something else could be wrong. So out comes my fancy computer. Out comes a fancy scan tool. Nothing can hide from the fancy scan tool. And we plug it in. There it is. It's lit up. It's working. And we'll turn on the brains of the operation. There we go. Gee, I thought I was the brains of the operation. I guess not. The machines have taken over. These things are amazing what they can do. And we'll go to diagnostics, and we're going to diagnose everything. We'll do auto ID. These things are smart enough, they figure out what they're hooked up to. We got the Toyota Corolla S, cycle ignition on, off. It's a Toyota trick. Enhanced vehicle scan. And as you're going to see, this thing scans all kinds of stuff. Look what it is scanning. This takes a little bit of time because you can see it's checking all these different things. Here's everything it's going to check, all this list. So it takes a little time. As they say, time is money. If you're going to buy one of these used, you pay a guy like me to hook one of these up, and you won't spend your time on something that isn't any good. Now, of course, this is too late because this was about a year ago, but it's going to give us a real good idea of what's happening with this vehicle. Now, granted, other than the motor mounts being changed, this thing now has 47,000 miles, and it had 35 when she bought it. And as you can see, so far, so good. There's no trouble codes yet. Still got to do this little bit of list here, so we take our time. Just understand, if I was going to test all these systems by hand using my tools, it would take hours, if not days, to run them all. This machine can do it in just 10-15 minutes. It's worth the wait. But now I've noticed something odd. There is the warning for tire pressure monitoring. When I look at tire pressure monitor, it says that there's no trouble codes. That is a giant red flag for me. It should have trouble codes easily from the wreck. It could have messed with the computer system or the wiring. We'll see what else this machine can find. Got 51 items found here and 39 items found here. Now the engine itself is running good. The short-term fuel trim is 0, and then it changes sometimes once in a while a tiny bit. And a long-term is minus 0.78. That's almost 0. And the MAF sensor is correct for the size of the engine. It's about the liter of the engine. There's 59 codes. I'm looking through the mode 6, and you see a green thing it passed. So we're going through all all these tests, and so far it shows everything passes. Yet the machine showed that were over 51 different problems. Something is amiss in the electronics. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It may run okay, but the fact that the tire pressure sensor light is on, it should have stored a code when I looked at that system, and it said they're warning. It should have said like left front sensor, right front sensor. Something's wrong, but it's not reading it. When this thing was wrecked, obviously it's done something to the electronics of the car, but we put in gear, it idles like a dream, it doesn't shake, it's getting about 37 miles a gallon on the highway, which is what it's supposed to get, so it runs okay. But who knows what the future will bring when it comes to any kind of electrical failure. Because it's showing no normal trouble codes, it'll pass the emissions test and everything, but the enhanced data shows a whole bunch of codes. It runs fine, everything seems to work. If somebody would have brought me this car in the first place before they purchased it, I would have done these tests and I would have said don't buy the car, because you never know what the future will be. Now they've had this car for a year, and other than them replacing the motor mounts, which like I said, there's no reason a Toyota Corolla with 35,000 miles is going to have broken motor mounts with a shaking engine, unless it had been in a wreck. But you consider how good it looks, how good it runs. A lot of times there's things that you're going to live with if you don't check them out right in the first place. Now I don't want to be the devil's advocate, but I did have a customer with a Volkswagen. Now it wasn't a Toyota, it was a Volkswagen. 3 years later, the electronics went absolutely haywire. And I said to him, man, your car's driving me nuts. What's going on? And he explained, oh, well, see, I bought this car as a flood car. I knew it was flooded. And I changed all the fluids, and it's run okay for 3 years. But then 3 years later, the electronics went bananas. No, I doubt that's going to happen to this Toyota Corolla, because it does run perfectly fine. It's just that, realize, modern cars have dozens of computer modules in them. They all talk to each other. And once they get in some kind of a wreck, they can often have glitchy problems here and there that they run okay and you don't care, but you want to check them out before you buy a car, not after. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Caesar 1551 says, should I sell my 2006 BMW 550i with 131,000 miles? I fixed the alternator, spark plugs, and a new battery with new tires and a starter. How much money do you have invested in that thing? It is a 15-year-old BMW 550i with 131,000 miles. Realize it probably has no resale value at all. Now, you just put a whole bunch of money in it. See how much money you put in, and just for kicks, put it on the market to see what you can get for it. Not what people say, but people actually come look at it and say, here's what I'll pay you for it. And if it's a lot more than the money you put in, and go right ahead. But on the other hand, they probably won't even pay you for the money that you just put into the thing, so you might as well as drive it until something big goes wrong and then just get rid of the thing. But if you're a very lucky man and you live in a very stupid neighborhood where people like BMWs and will pay a lot of money for them, by all means, sell it as fast as you can for some serious money, if you can get serious money for it. Mick says, hey, I noticed in auto parts stores there are lots of starters and alternators are remanufactured. Many premium brands remake them as well. Are those reborn items reliable? Performance is the same as the new ones. Generally, they're not as good as the new one. When something's broken and fixed, it generally does not last as long unless it's upgraded, and very few times do they upgrade it. Let's say you got an engine that breaks and you take it to a pro, maybe a guy that builds race car engines. When he's done rebuilding it, it could be better than new. But alternator, starter, stuff like that, no. They generally just fix what was broken and then sell it on. And they generally don't last as long. Now, a quality rebuilder is going to last better than a crappy rebuilder. You're always taking somewhat of a gamble buying rebuilt anything, because it used to be remanufactured meant that all these things were replaced, all the parts, and they only used the shell. But rebuilt meant they just fixed it. But now they're interchangeable. There's no difference. They're just words. They don't mean anything. So I'm kind of leery about them myself. But the best, if you're going to buy one of those, get it from a place that gives a lifetime warranty. So then if it breaks, you get it free. Why not? I do that all the time for customers. I say, look, you go buy one at AutoZone or someplace gives you a lifetime warranty. You're not going to have to buy another one anyways, and their stores are all over the place. So even if you're on a trip somewhere and it breaks, there's going to be an AutoZone or whatever, pretty close to where you are, where you can get another one free. Robinson Selson says, hey, going uphill between 40 and 50, my car vibrates a little bit, but when I pass 50, it stops vibrating. Subaru with 100,000 miles. Any thoughts? Now, you're saying it only does it uphill. If it did it all the time, it would mean your tires were out of balance or your alignment was off. But you said it's only uphill. And you also gave me another clue. It's a Subaru with 100,000 miles. What's happening is either your automatic transmission is starting to go out, or your torque converter that's inside in front of the transmission is going out, and that's why it's vibrating. It's typical that transmissions are garbage, and with an automatic transmission, you didn't say if you had automatic or standard transmission. If you have an automatic transmission, I can just about guarantee you that's what it is. Now, if it's a standard transmission, it could be something else. With that particular thing, it's almost always either the automatic transmission or the torque converter inside that feeds power. I see that all the time in a Subarus. And it does it uphill because that's when it's strained the most. When you're going uphill, there's more strain. And on a flat one, I've seen many Subarus do that. They run perfectly fine, but then if you go into the hill country and they're awesome, you start going uphill, they start doing it, and it's the transmission or the torque converter starting to go out. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.